A whistleblower in a multi-billion-dollar case against OpenAI is found not alive anymore in his apartment. Today we're going to talk about what he was fighting for, the circumstances of his untimely expiration, and what it means for AI. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist, and I'm building AI Capitalist to talk to leaders and thinkers like you about navigating this new world of intelligent machines. So the tragic passing of Sukhir Balaji, a former researcher at OpenAI, has been confirmed by police as self-inflicted. At just 26 years old, he had voiced concerns about potential copyright issues related to his employer and other companies who were working with generative artificial intelligence. Police discovered him in his San Francisco apartment on November 26th after a welfare check was requested, as reported by various media outlets. Sukhir Balaji dedicated nearly 4 years to his role as an artificial intelligence researcher at OpenAI. During his time there, he had the exciting opportunity to help collect and organize the vast amounts of internet data that contributed to the creation of the popular online chatbot ChatGPT. When he initially joined the company, he didn't give much thought to whether they had the legal right to create products in that manner. He figured that the San Francisco startup could freely utilize any data that was available publicly on the internet, regardless of its copyright status. However, after ChatGPT launched in late 2022, he started to reflect more deeply on the company's practices. Eventually, he concluded that OpenAI's use of copyrighted material might be crossing some legal boundaries, and that technologies like ChatGPT could be having a negative impact on the internet. In August, he decided to part ways with OpenAI because he felt that it was time to step back from the technologies that he believed could do more harm than good for society. He was one of the first employees to leave a prominent AI company and share his thoughts on the use of copyrighted data in creating these technologies. Now, interestingly, a former vice president from the innovative London startup Stability AI, known for its incredible image and audio generating technologies, has voiced similar concern. And if you're concerned about AI Capitalist being a small channel and helping me break out of this prison of small channel hell, I would urge you to press the like button. Pressing like tells me I'm making content that you want to see, and it spreads that content to others. Let's build this thing. All right, so in the last couple of years, several people and businesses have come forward to file lawsuits against various AI companies, including OpenAI. They're raising concerns that copyrighted materials were used without permission from the creators of that material to train the technologies, and the individuals and groups taking action range from computer programmers and artists to record labels, book authors, and news organizations, all eager to protect their creative work. In December, the New York Times decided to take legal action against OpenAI and its main partner, Microsoft. They alleged that these companies used millions of articles from the Times to create the chatbots that now rival them as a trusted source of information. Both companies have firmly denied these allegations. Having looked into it myself, what I'm seeing is that it seems that the articles that they're claiming were stolen by Chat are very cherry-picked. They're articles that have been posted off of the New York Times website and passed around and referenced heavily. And the way that they discovered the articles was by typing in the first few words, the exact words of the article. And as we all know, the way that a language model works, it looks at the words and then it looks at what's the next word, most likely next word. So when you type in a series of, say, 12 words, and then the next word in the sequence, what's the next word in the sequence going to be? Most likely, it's going to be looking at that article since it appears in many places on the internet, and then just fill in the blanks and create the article. So I do have some questions about the New York Times' position here. Numerous researchers who've been part of OpenAI and various tech companies have raised some friendly caution about the potential risks of AI technologies. And while a lot of these discussions have focused on future possibilities, such as AI systems that might someday contribute to creating new bioweapons or pose existential threats, it's important to consider these perspectives thoughtfully. Mr. Balaji had a different perspective, highlighting that the challenges we face are more pressing. He believed that ChatGPT and other chatbots were impacting the livelihoods of individuals, businesses, and online services that originally generated the digital content used to train these AI systems. Mr. Balaji seems to feel that OpenAI's approach to using copyrighted material isn't the best way to support a healthy internet ecosystem. It was interesting, he didn't seem to delve too much into the creators and how it harms the creators of the content. In response, OpenAI shared their viewpoint, stating that, quote, "We develop our AI models using data that's publicly available while adhering to fair use principles and established legal guidelines. We believe this approach is fair to creators, essential for innovators, and vital for maintaining competitiveness of the United States." So back in 2013, DeepMind introduced their initial AI, which had learned to play timeless Atari games by itself, mastering classics like Space Invaders, Pong, and Breakout. At that time, as a teenager in Cupertino, Mr. Balaji came across a fascinating news story about technology that truly sparked his imagination. He was especially enchanted by a later creation from DeepMind that excelled at the ancient game of Go. Now, back then, he couldn't help but feel that AI held the potential to tackle some of the biggest challenges that we face, like finding cures for diseases and even halting aging. He envisioned the possibility of creating a kind of scientist through AI that could help us solve these complex issues. During his gap year after high school, he dove into the world of computer science at University of California, Berkeley, and there he discovered the conceptual ideas behind DeepMind's technologies. He's a clever mathematical system known as a neural network. And in 2020, he joined a lively group of Berkeley grads who were excited to work for OpenAI. So when he built ChatGPT for OpenAI, spent months poring over a huge amount of English text that's available over the internet. They approached the endeavor with the mindset of a research project, not necessarily something for commercialization. At that time, it was called OpenAI, and it was open source. They weren't looking for profit. So now OpenAI has transitioned into a for-profit company and began offering access to a similar technology but back then it was GPT-3. But they didn't see their work as competition for existing internet services. I should note that GPT-3 wasn't a chatbot. It was a more powerful tool that allowed businesses and programmers to create their own software applications. Now, in the early days of ChatGPT, the general vibe didn't really prioritize copyright respect. Back then, because it was a research project, the common thinking was that you could train on pretty much any data you came across. Once ChatGPT-4 came out, it captured the imaginations of hundreds of millions of people, and it turned into a hugely lucrative venture. OpenAI, Microsoft, and several other companies believe that using internet data to train their AI systems falls under the umbrella of fair use. This has 4 key factors, and these companies maintain that these factors, such as the idea that they have significantly transformed the copyrighted works and aren't directly competing with those works, work in their favor. But Mr. Balaji had a different viewpoint. He felt that these criteria aren't truly met. When systems like GPT-4 learn from data, they essentially make a complete copy of that data. Then companies like OpenAI can train the system to generate either an exact replica of the original data, or to create an entirely new text. But the reality, as he saw it, was that they often teach the systems to find a middle ground. And this practice is referred to as copyright washing, which I discussed further in a separate video. The outputs aren't exact replicas of the input, but they don't necessarily represent groundbreaking innovation. A couple of months ago, he shared an essay on his personal website that included a mathematical analysis aimed at proving his point. Nevertheless, from a legal standpoint, courts generally find that what chatbots produce is different enough from their training data to count as fair use. At least that's been the trend in recent court decisions. Sometimes you might see an output that closely resembles input, but the majority of content created by tools like ChatGPT or image generators doesn't closely mirror any specific source. Mr. Balaji raised an interesting point, arguing that these technologies can sometimes infringe on the law because they often compete directly with the original copyrighted works that they've learned from. Generative models are designed to mimic online data, which means that they can essentially replace a wide range of content available on the internet, whether it's news articles or discussions in online forums. The bigger challenge, he believes, is that as AI technologies take over traditional online services, they can produce misinformation or instances of what researchers refer to as hallucinations. Current intellectual copyright laws were established long before AI technology became prevalent. So Mr. Balaji and creators who support him believed that it's time for Congress to step up and create a new law that addresses the rapidly evolving world of AI. With the pace of change, regulation is definitely the way forward. He also took the initiative to publish an article on his personal website where he examined the 4-factor fair use defense established in the 1976 Copyright Act. In his analysis, he argued that OpenAI's use of internet content doesn't quite meet the criteria. Now, Balaji was just one of 4 different OpenAI custodians who've come forward in the last month talking about copyright infringement in the complaint against Microsoft and OpenAI. According to his LinkedIn profile, Balaji decided to part ways with OpenAI in August after serving nearly 4 years. A custodian request to the court dated on November 18th, the New York Times had stated that Balaji could provide unique and relevant documents that would back up the claims of willful infringement, among other important points. The attorneys representing the New York Times had also previously requested that the court identify 8 other current or former OpenAI employees as custodians for the case. This group included some prominent figures such as Ilya Sutskever, the co-founder and an ex-chief scientist, along with Brad Lightcap, the chief operating officer. Now, OpenAI is standing firm in its belief that the use of online materials falls under fair use. So if the publishers' lawsuits make it to court, they're going to raise some interesting new questions about copyright law that could shape the future of generative AI models. So the question at hand is OpenAI's large language model considered a derivative work of the New York Times' content in a legal sense? They're also going to answer, does ChatGPT reproduce articles from newspapers word for word in its responses, which might count as copyright infringement? Given the potential cost and the complexity involved, it's pretty likely that a settlement could be reached before going to trial that would benefit both parties. Gathering 10 intellectual property lawyers in a room could yield 11 differing opinions. So it's understandable that both sides are navigating some uncertainty. Now, one of Balaji's conclusions that he'd reached was that OpenAI's use of training data fell short of fair use because, among other reasons, ChatGPT's outputs seem to have an effect on the market for the organizations whose data was used, particularly since it appears to serve as a substitute for their original content. And I can tell you this personally. I've written legal letters, and I've seen some of my friends who are in graphic arts lose their jobs specifically over this. Okay, so big picture, you had a guy who was set to testify against a multi-billion-dollar company and thought that he could mathematically prove that AI chatbots were violating copyright. With that kind of money at stake, I know what you're thinking. Balaji didn't unalive himself. We've seen this before, right? But if OpenAI had lost the case, ChatGPT might have to be shut down. Maybe the AI did it. Don't stop now. I have dozens more videos. This video is part of a playlist, which I'll post for you here so that you can go through and watch other videos that are similar, or you can watch our newest videos, and we have lots of other playlists. So keep clicking, keep watching. Click over there.